What's up, heathens? How y'all doing? Today we're going to be talking about 5 things that religion gets backwards. So if you want to find out how backwards religion actually is, then please stay tuned. So, first thing that we're going to cover today is magic. Well, specifically, how magic created everything. Oftentimes, you'll see creationists argue that atheists, or people that accept evolution, think that the Big Bang magically exploded out of nothing and created the Earth, the sun, the moon, the stars, and all that kind of shit. This particular thing has always perplexed me, primarily because we have explanations like evolution, whether it be cosmic or biological, to explain how these things work. We understand the natural processes that have brought forth the universe as we see it today. Yet, they are the ones that paint us with this magical brush and thinking that everything just magically popped into existence. Meanwhile, in the Bible, many things are magical as fuck. I mean, the whole universe is magically created instantaneously from literally nothing. Not the scientific nothing that we usually work with in the, Big Bang Theory. No. This is quite literally nothing. God was standing there buck-ass naked, and he just went bloop and created shit out of nothing. Obviously, because it's written down in a book, that means it's correct. In that same breath, plants magically live without sunlight. Of course, you gotta discount the light coming out of God's ass as he's shining it upon the earth that he just created. Samson magically has super strength. Noah magically gets all of the animals onto the ark, regardless of what region of the world that they lived in. Oh, and then after that, the world is magically populated through incest. Not once, but fucking twice. Moses magically parts the Red Sea. Joshua magically dances around a city and stomps his feet and yells and breaks a wall. And for some reason, blood is needed to atone for sins. I still haven't figured out that shit. And then that gets me onto the whole magical disease bit of sin. Apparently, you contract that shit sliding out of your mom's vagina. Magical animals talk all the fucking time in the Bible. You got the donkey, the snake, other magical things. I mean, the list could go on and on. My point is that Christians out there, or apologists rather, love to say that we believe in this magical thinking when in actuality, they are the ones with the magical teachings. Next up is there's no point in life. Regularly, you see Christian apologists say that atheists have no value to life, or they have no point in living this life, when in actuality, it's completely the opposite. Not just the opposite for me, but the opposite for the religious person as well. Just because there's no magical creator in the sky doesn't mean that I don't value my life or there's no point to my life. It's actually a very confusing concept until you really start thinking about it. Because for me, as an atheist, I place an immense amount of value on this life because this is the only life that we have. We only know of this particular life. We don't know about anything that happens after we die or whatever's before we're born. So it's completely bass-ackwards for you to say that I don't value life when I obviously have an immense value to my life. But if you consider the religious side of the argument, you have this eternal life that lasts forever that has an infinite value. And then you have this life that is worth 80 years, if you're lucky. So if you just think about this mathematically and you try to come up with a ratio of this life to that life, you would end up with basically no value to this life. There's obviously some value, but when you put infinity on the other side of that, it's basically worth nothing. So I really don't understand this particular argument that atheists have no value in life when obviously it's really the Christians that would hold no value to their life because they're waiting on this eternity to get here. They're waiting to get that eternity, which is so immensely valuable considering the time span that it makes this life meaningless. Next up is this concept of justice. Now, a lot of Christian apologists out there will tell you that, in an atheistic worldview, there's no justice at all. It's just anarchy and shit. When in actuality, this is bass-ackwards thinking. Apparently, their God is the only God that can truly judge somebody after they're dead. Except there's an obvious loophole to this one, being that they're Christian apologists. They would believe that if you fully accepted Jesus Christ into your life and you die, then you would get into heaven, thus suffering no justice whatsoever for whatever crime or actions that you committed in this life. Of course, this is only one way to interpret the Bible and Jesus' teachings and all of that, so it's not to be indicative of all of Christianity, but within the context of the Bible, there is this possibility. I mean, you have several serial killers that went on these massive killing sprees, and then they found Jesus before they died, so they are in heaven. I mean, can you really call it judgment when all you have to do is suck on that Jesus dick a little bit? Let's jump back to reality, where we spend all of our days. We have a justice system with a certain knowledge that it may not be perfect. We, as a society, are responsible for handling our own justice and seeing that justice appropriately applied. But like everything else in reality, it is flawed, and it may never be perfect. But acknowledging that fact that it may never be perfect will allow us to better our justice system to get closer to perfection, even though we'll never really achieve it. This is, of course, in stark contrast to just sitting there, acknowledging that our system is flawed, and hoping some magical solution pops in out of thin air. So you see, Christians harp on us about having no justice whatsoever for those people that do bad things in this life, when all they have to do is just, believe in Jesus and they'll get past that celestial bouncer. And more importantly, though, it just gives someone a false sense of justice, a faux justice, because it's not really justice in that sense. It's really just making yourself feel okay with the shitty card you've been dealt. Second to last is responsibility. A lot of times, apologists will tell us that atheists just want to be an atheist so that they can escape responsibility. This is so far from the truth, and it's actually the Christians that want to escape responsibility. Mainly these actions that make us want to be atheists, or supporting progress in our society where we realize that butt-fucking, pegging, and scissoring aren't really all that bad. Also, sin and hell are made-up constructs that want to enforce a moral standard on a group of people without having any actual consequences. Theism has no eternal blowback to whatever decisions you make in life, unless you're Mormon or a JW, in which case they'll embarrass you in front of the entire congregation and possibly kick your ass out, thus leaving you stranded with no family, friends, or a life, really. All the time we see religious people escaping any kind of responsibility for their actions by hiding behind this God shield that they seem to have. Any scandal that you see in the church or outside of the church, you will see these people stand up and be like, well, I'm getting right with God, or God has forgiven me, or this guy is working out between him and God how he fucked and diddled those little kids at that other church. So you see how we're not the ones that want to escape responsibility. We don't have a shield to hide behind. There's no magical thing that we can just blame shit on like Christians can. Because it's not the Christians or the religious people in general that hate gays and lesbians and all that kind of shit. They don't hate them. God hates the sin! So to say that we want to escape responsibility is really disingenuous and bass-ackwards to the actual reality of the situation. And finally, we land on evidence. A lot of the times, Christian apologists love to throw out that we don't have any kind of evidence to support our atheism or evolution. First of all, you don't need to provide evidence of non-existent things like God. There's a lack of evidence that a God exists, so we can't exactly provide evidence to say that he definitely doesn't, because he has yet to have been proven to actually exist. Then they say that we don't have evidence for evolution, which is completely false. There's a lot of evidence supporting evolution. Not only do you have the transitional fossils that exist, but also the observations that we make in the laboratory with bacteria and how they change over time. That is also evolution. I could go on with all of the different studies that prove how, mutations in the DNA can give rise to various different life forms. Or how we know that all life is connected to one single celled organism in the distant past. But you see, none of that's going to matter to a creationist at all. Because anything that is against the Bible, we need to have solid, concrete, hold it in my hand evidence for. And like I said, we do, they just won't accept it. But then you flip the script a little bit and you ask them for evidence of God, and they don't really provide evidence. Because all of their evidence is contained in one little book. And apparently that one book trumps all of fucking science. Now the difference between our evidence and their evidence is that it can reliably predict and explain everything that we see in reality. The shit that we don't know about or that we don't have explanations for, usually science works its way around to explaining them. It's testable, it's repeatable. People that didn't take part in the test can get the test, redo it, and come up with the same answers or different answers that will then change the hypothesis or theory, because that's how science works. But, using the Bible, you get that the homo gays caused the hurricane season, or that we're being punished for kicking God out of schools. It's all bullshit. And it just shows how it's just bass-ackwards thinking. To say that we don't have evidence, but yet you do when all you have is a book. So I would say that the Christians are the ones that lack evidence. Atheists or scientists, evolutionists, however you want to classify us, we actually do have evidence, or, beliefs. We inform them with facts. Thank you, heathens, for making it to the end. If you will, go down below in the comments and let me know which one of the 5 things that I've mentioned here really kind of resonate with you. I'd love to have that conversation down in the comments. While you're down there, be sure to smash that like button and subscribe if you like this kind of content. Don't forget to stand up and use your voice, and I will see you heathens later. It's supposed to be cringy, honey. Let's jump back to reality and other rap words. Pops out of flawed and accepting that our system is flawed and shit and stuff and things. Boil down to butt fucking pegging and scissoring our way through life and stuff and things.